So our today's agenda is what are the new topics which are added in ISSAP, recommended study materials which is relevant for the new syllabus, what are the domains which are removed or updated, and some of the sample questions. So what is your ISSAP? ISSAP stands for Information System Security Architect Professional. It's a CISSP concentration which is focused on designing security solutions and provide a risk-based guidance to meet organizational needs. So it is basically ideal for people who are working as a security architect, consultants, and engineers who basically design and analyze the security solutions. So basically, people who are working into the enterprise architecture like TOGAF, SAPSA, and you want to have a or you want to pursue the career of security architect, cloud architect, and you want to maintain a you want to get your hands on one of the architect certification, then ISSAP is for you. Now earlier, if I used to talk about this is 2 year earlier. If anyone wants to go for any CISSP concentrations, whether it is ISSAP, ISSMP, or ISSEP, you must have an active CISSP certification. But now that requirement is removed. So people who has relevant 2 years of work experience in any of the 4 domains, which is testable in the exam, they can directly go for the ISSAP certification, even though if they are not CISSP. So that requirement where you have to go first go for CISSP, then go for ISSAP is no longer there. You can directly go for the ISSAP certification. However, we still recommend people to go for the CISSP first because CISSP is a CAT based examination. So if you have an experience on the existing ISE square certification, then that gives you an edge because ISE square certification is one of the most difficult certification a person can attempt in their lifetime. So that's the reason that experience matters. That's why we still recommend everyone going for ISSAP that you must have a CI, you must have a if you have a CISSP and CCSP certification, that definitely gives you an edge in clearing this examination on the first attempt. So knowing your architectural framework. So basically, when you go for an ISSAP, you basically have we basically cover SAPSA, TOGAF, Zachman frameworks, how they are basically related to the enterprise security. So we must be able to understand the business objectives and map this into security requirements. Now, one of the good things, okay, one of the good things which is there in the ISSAP, so the syllabus is going to be changed from August 1st, which means people who are planning to give the ISSAP exam, they still have 3 more weeks. So you can actually attempt the examination on the old pattern till July 30th. From August 1st, the syllabus is going to be changed. So one of the good things which is there in the ISSAP new syllabus, that it only contains 4 domains as compared to previous one which contains 6 domains. Okay, so the weightage of all the below domains has been increased. So now it is actually a good thing, as well as it is actually a good thing that now you don't have to cover 6 domains. So the architect for application security and security operations, these 2 domains is being removed. Okay, the architect for application security and the security operation architecture. So earlier in the ISSAP there was 6 domains which were testable. Now the domain 5 and 6, which is architect for application security and security operation architecture, is being removed. What it means is you are no longer going to get any questions on these domains, but at the same time they have increased the weightage of these 4 domains. So as you can see from the GRC, the GRC weightage is increased from 20 to 21%. The security architecture modeling, where we cover the SAPSA, TOGAF. Okay, then we have your what do you call that, cloud architecture, that has been increased to 22%. Okay, so the infrastructure and system security architecture has been, the goal is, the weightage is increased to 32%, and identity and access management is increased to 25%. So what it means is you are going to get more and more questions on the domain 1, domain 3 and domain 2. Okay, more you will be the exam is going to be more asking questions on the architectural part. Like, we basically have a SAPSA, we basically have a TOGAF architecture, we basically has your compliance frameworks, like we have your COBIT, right? So in all these areas you will be getting more and more questions. So what are the topics which are being added in the ISSAP new syllabus, which is was not there in the previous? Now, when I am talking about the governance, risk and compliance, incorporating the risk assessment artifacts, now in the GRC you are going to get more and more questions on the high availability, redundancy, business continuity, disaster recovery. So you are going to be asked more and more questions on the risk assessment artifacts, the resilient solutions. So the examination is going to ask you questions on the NIST CSF framework, your NIST SP 800-57 53. So these things are added in the GRC, governance, risk and compliance. When it comes to the security architecture modeling, SAPSA and TOGAF was already there, but there was very few questions on the STRIDE. Now, STRIDE is what? STRIDE is your threat modeling. So we have your spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, elevation, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. So now you are going to get more and more questions on the threat assessment, threat modeling. Okay, when it comes to the infrastructure and system security architecture, you are going to get more and more questions on the SCADA. Okay, the air gap, the EDRM solutions. In terms of your identity and access management, you are going to get questions on how to assign the identifiers. Okay, you are going to get more and more questions on the identity provisioning and deprovisioning, such as what should be the process based on the joiners, movers, leavers process. So when people join, what is the onboarding process? When people move from one position to another position, okay, what should be the process? Okay, when people leave the organization, so the offboarding process. So the examination is going to ask more and more questions on the identity provisioning and deprovisioning. Okay, now when we are talking about from the security architecture and modeling, so earlier in the exam more and more questions were based on from the SAPSA. Okay, but now even you are going to get more questions in the new syllabus based on the TOGAF framework. So you need to have a good understanding, on the TOGAF, the ADM life cycle, which if I have to refer about specifically the ADM life cycle. Okay, so more and more questions on the ADM life cycle along with the SAPSA will be testable in the examination from August 1st. We are also in the exam, when we say the SOA architecture, service oriented architecture, which is specifically used in the cloud, even that is testable in the exam. That was actually testable in the previous domains as well, in the previous ISSAP syllabus as well. But now, since the two domains, architect for application security and the security operation architecture, has been removed, so you will be getting a lot of questions on the SOA, service oriented architecture, which is very much relevant in the cloud. So now when we are talking about the materials, okay, so what are now one of the challenge when we say for ISSAP, or for that matter any CISSP concentrations, is that when people want to go for CISSP or when people want to go for CCSP, there are a lot of materials which are available. Like if I have to just take an example of CISSP, you have a CISSP CBK 6th edition is there. You have all-in-one, you have Cybex, right? So all these are there. Even when we say practice questions, you have a bunch of practice questions. So you can either rely on the Cybex practice tests, which is there, the Cybex practice test, which is there on the Play Store or App Store. You can either go for the LearnZ app or the Boson test. So you get a huge amount of questions which is available for you, which can develop the thought process, which will help you to clear the exam. But when it comes to ISSAP, however, now when we are talking about in ISSAP as such, there is no practice questions. Okay, so what it means is uh, the amount of questions which you practice in the CISSP and CCSP, that much questions is not available when it comes to ISSAP. Okay, so what it means is that you have to a huge amount of time you have to rely on the practice questions of CISSP and CCSP. Okay, now even when we are talking about the materials, like the amount of materials which is available for CISSP, the same is available for CCSP as well. Like we have CCSP for dummies, CCSP Cybex, CCSP student guide, lot of things are available. But when it comes to your ISSAP, in ISSAP, the only book which is still valid is the official ISC Square Guide ISSAP second edition. Okay, which is written by Adam Gordon. So this is one of the material which is still relevant, which you have to refer when you are preparing for the ISSAP. Okay, so apart from this, what else you need to refer? You need to make sure that you have a good understanding in all of the 8 domains of CISSP. So what it means is that you have to refer the CISSP CBK 6th edition. Okay, so all the domains which are there in the CISSP, which is such as your security risk management, your your asset security, security architecture and engineering, communication and network security, identity and access management, then your what do you say, your security assessment and testing, your what do you call that, your security operations, software development security, all these domains are still testable in the exam. Okay, so you have to have a good understanding on the entire 8 domains of CISSP. Now this is specifically if you have completed your CISSP around 2 years back. Okay, if you have completed your CISSP 2 years or 3 years back, then it is better that first you go through the entire 8 domains of CISSP and then you start referring the ISC Square ISSAP second edition. And there is a reason why I am saying, because it is still some of the topics, some of the questions are still testable from the CISSP syllabus. So like you may get questions on communication and network security, identity and access management, or let's say asset security or security and risk management. So the way like we you may get some questions on from the CISSP syllabus even in your ISSAP. Now how I am saying that official ISC Square Guides second edition along with the CISSP CBK 6th edition you need to refer. Along with that, you also need to refer the CCSP for dummies, specifically domain 1, 2, and 3. Okay, domain 1, 2, and 3, these are still testable in the exam. So you need to make sure that you first refer the CISSP CBK 6th edition, refer all the 8 domains. Then you basically cover the CCSP for dummies for domain 1, 2 and 3, and then finally you refer the official ISC Square guide ISSAP 2nd edition. As of now, the ISC Square 2nd edition for ISSAP is still relevant. There is no other book which is available in the market. Now when I say for the practice questions, okay, now when I say for the practice questions, so almost you are going to practice the same amount of questions which you have to practice the same question sets which you have done sometime back on your CISSP and CCSP. So you have to use the LearnZ. Now what are the practice questions which I personally recommend, which I use during my ISSAP preparation, is the LearnZ app, which is available in your Play Store and App Store for CISSP and CCSP. It still has a good amount of questions which you can practice. Now, one of the advantage of the LearnZ app and is that it gives you the flexibility to choose domain-wise questions. Okay, so it gives you the flexibility to choose domain-wise questions. So you can actually, practice. You can pick each domain and you can practice only those specific domain-wise questions for both the CISSP and CCSP. But but let's say if you say that this is for only if you are practicing for CISSP and CCSP, but what if the topics which are not covered in CISSP and CCSP, live example, like we have SAPSA, right? We have TOGAF, like we have service oriented architecture. Now these are some topics which are actually not covered in the CISSP and CCSP. So here what you will do, you will basically use the chat GPT. You will tell the chat GPT to create some scenario based questions and give it to you. So you can use the chat GPT over here to practice on those topics which are not covered in the ISSAP, in the CISSP or CCSP syllabus, like your TOGAF, like your SAPSA, service oriented architecture, etc. Now when we are talking about the mindset, now you must have heard about that when we talk about your CISSP or CCSP, we always say that you have to think like a manager. Your role is like a risk advisor when you are approaching the exam. So your thought process is not to fix the problem but to fix the process. Now when I say ISSAP, information system security architect professional, is a in depth, it is more or less a technical certification. So what I say that here, your role as a risk advisor is not going to help you. Okay, you should know where to place the controls. So your role is like a security architect. Your role is to design the security architect. Your role is to design the architect for the organization. So you need to have a good level of understanding on where exactly you are going to place the control. Live example, if I am talking about a DLP, if I am talking about a DRM, if I am talking about an information rights management system, if I am talking about CASB, if I am talking about a database activity monitoring, so you should know where exactly the placement of control is ideal, from where we can get the maximum ROI, which is your return of investment. Okay, so in most of your CISSP and CCSP, people who have attempted the questions or people who have cleared the examination, mostly the CISSP and CCSP will contain one liner questions maximum, but in the ISSAP you are going to get scenario based questions. So now I have seen like people, the moment we say that scenario based questions, they get a little bit afraid. But actually, if you read the question carefully, the scenario based questions are more easier to solve than your one-liner questions. Why? Because in the scenario-based questions, you have more data points in your hand, right? So you have more pointers in your hand which will help you to arrive at the right answer. The challenge is the one-liner questions. Okay, so you will get a mixture of both. You will get one-liner questions as well, and you will basically get your scenario based questions as well. Now if you ask me, even in ISSAP, even though the examination is not CAT like CISSP, but still you will see that as you solve the more and more questions, the difficulty level of the questions will be keep on increasing. Okay, so even now in ISSAP the passing score is 70%. You don't have any option to go back, and the duration is 3 hours and 125 questions you are going to get. So even though it is not CAT based, but still the difficulty level of the question will keep on increasing. So the examination is more going to test you on the placement of controls. So that's the reason why I say that you need to know your history. You basically need to know common criteria. You need to know the EAL levels. You need to know what is protection profile. Okay, now you may get a scenario based question where they may ask that you are actually procuring a product which does not have a common criteria certification. So under as a security architect, what should be your best response to handle this kind of situation? So these kind of scenario based questions are testable in the exam. So that's why I am telling that you have to know your history. Now some additional references are also there for preparing for the ISSAP, which is actually mentioned in the below link. So if you go to the issquare.org/certification/references, you will be able to find like what are the additional materials which ISC Square recommends for people who are preparing for the ISSAP. Now, one of the advantage for people who are actually going for the ISSAP is now ISC Square has a peace of mind offer. So I know many people must have already be knowing with this peace of mind offer. Okay, but this peace of mind offer is little different from your previous peace of mind offer which ISC Square was offering last year. Okay, what's the difference? So in last year, the peace of mind offer which IC Square was giving is if you are unable to clear the examination on the first attempt, the second attempt you have to give within 30 days. Okay, so where you can get 2 times. So if you are unable to clear the examination on the first attempt, the second attempt you have to give before 30 days, right? But now IC Square gives you that flexibility where you can purchase this peace of mind and you will be able to give both the examination within 180 days. Okay, so let's say that you gave the examination on August 1st. Okay, and unfortunately you are not able to clear. So the second attempt either you can give after 30 days or after 90 days as well. So it means like both the attempts of your first attempt and the second attempt must be planned within 180 days. So which means that even if you fail for the first time, you have an ample amount of time to prepare and give the second attempt. But as I always say that when you register for peace of mind offer, see this examination is not like CISSP or CCSP. It is a mile inch deep and wide when it comes to testing the controls, etc. Right? So you need to do a lot of reading. So what it means is that once you register for this offer, you have to be diligent in preparing for the exam. It means every day minimum 3 hours you have to read and practice the questions. It doesn't matter whether you have a lot of workload in your office, you have some personal emergency, or you have some family issues. You have to stay focused. Otherwise, 180 days will go like that. So only if you feel that you are that much focused, that you want to clear this examination within 90 days, within 30 days, then only you should go for the peace of mind offer. Otherwise, it's better that you prepare at your own pace and plan for the exam. Now, let's say if you are going for some kind of training for ISSAP. So, after the completion of the training, in how many months you should plan for? So, normally, what I recommend is when the knowledge is fresh, that time. So, after the training is completed, within 2 months, you should plan for the exam, because when the knowledge is fresh, if during that time you are planning the exam, the chances of you clearing the examination will be more comparative to if you are taking a planning an examination of within 3 months. 3 months is still fine, but don't take too much amount of time, like the training got completed in the month of May and you are planning the examination in November and December. That should not be the case, because the more time you are taking, the concepts will become old, you will tend to forget, and it will be more and more difficult for you to clear the exam. So that's the reason why I say plan within 2 months of duration. Now, let's say when you are practicing the questions, okay, so what should be your approach? So now start with a small set. So when I say start with a small set, don't try to overload yourself by taking an examination set of 50 or 150 questions at a stretch. Start small, try to solve 5 questions, 10 questions, then gradually increase it to 15, 20, 25. Now, what people do that when they, if you are purchasing LearnZ app, or if you are practicing the boson questions, normally your LearnZ app and boson questions will not have any repetitive questions because their question bank is so large. But when you are practicing questions, you have to also, so how can you evaluate yourself that you are ready to take this exam? Able to score 60 to 65%. Okay, if you are able to score between, let's say not 60, I will say 65 to 70% in each of these domains, then you can say that you are ready for the exam. Okay, now when I say 65 to 70, that doesn't mean that you will keep on practicing the same question 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Okay, normally when I give my CISSP, CCSP, or ISSAP trainings, so I only consider what is the score which you got on the first time when you were attempting this exam. Okay, because the first time when you are attempting the exam, the first score which you are getting, that is your true score. That is your true score. So even when you are doing your self evaluation, you have to only consider that score which you got it on your first time, because that is your true score. Any after that, even if you are attempting the question second time or third time, you can do that for practice purpose, but it's not going to lead any good results, because by that time you will already remember what was the answer. So don't try to cheat yourself in this exam. That's what I'm trying to say. Now here is some scenario based question. Now, even in this, I will recommend, now when you are solving the questions, okay, now normally we have a habit of that we read the answer, we read the question, then we read the answer, and then we try to eliminate. Now, I want you people to try a different approach. Whenever you are getting the question, read the answers first, then read the question, identify the keyword to arrive at the right answer. Now, I know that this process is, you are not going to become an expert overnight in this. It's going to take its own time. But once you develop this process, it is not only going to help you to clear ISSAP, but it will help you to clear any other management oriented exams. So read the answer, read the question, identify the keywords, and then arrive at the right answer. So read the answers first, then read the scenario, read the question, and then try to understand. So a multinational firm uses 10 plus SaaS apps with siloed identity stores. The CIO, they wants central visibility, policy enforcement, and life cycle control for all the identities. So question is, which architecture with control placement resolves the identity sprawl securely? Only rely on SSO from one app to another. Use browser plugins for password management. Keep identities separated per SaaS provider and deploy an identity broker with SCIM provisioning, multi-factor authentication, and policy engine for cross-app governance. So here the answer, if I go, the reason why I am going with the answer B, because it is covering my A, C and D. So I will deploy an identity broker with an SCIM provisioning, which will also have my multi-factor authentication. Okay. It will also have a policy engine for cross app governance, which means I will be using here my attribute based access control for enforcing the policies where it is needed. So that is the reason why I am going with the answer B over here. Another scenario. Okay. So your manufacturing division has a legacy SCADA systems with no modern encryption or patch support. These systems cannot be upgraded but must stay online. Now, what is the question? What architecture ensures risk containment while maintaining the availability? Connect directly to the internet for vendor updates. That is definitely not possible because here we are talking about SCADA. Okay. So when we are talking about SCADA, it should be either air gap, it should be physically or logically isolated. Patch the OS using cloud agents, but again, we can't install cloud agents because the system is not connected with the cloud. Move SCADA systems to cloud VMs. Again, that is not possible. So what we are left, place the legacy systems in the isolated VLANs, enforce firewall proxies, and monitor with the inline IDS. Now, what is the kind of protocol which we are using in SCADA? We use the DNP3 and Modbus. So now when we say enforce firewall for proxies, here we are talking about the SCADA aware firewalls. So if we a live example, like we have a organization, we have a Fortinet. So Fortinet provides your SCADA aware firewalls, which is used for protecting your IoT and ICS devices and SCADA devices. That is the reason I am going with the answer B.